The past 200 years of settlement has seen Australia grow from harsh desert and dense rainforests to vibrant cities and bustling urban centres. However, Australia's rapid development into one of the world's strongest nations hasn't been without negative effects. In order to accommodate for the 24 million people that call Australia home, we've had to change, develop, and exploit the ground we stand on. The land system changes to accommodate such growth over recent years has been remarkable.
85% of Australians live in urban centres, and 70% of these people live in capital cities. As you can imagine, this sort of rapid urbanisation places huge pressure on industry to employ effective use of limited land available to produce what we as a society demand. Since European settlement, the available land has drastically decreased from 769 million hectares to only 147 in the last 200 years. Australian Bureau of Statistics says that of the total land cleared, 60% goes to agriculture. From this, Australian farmers are able to produce enough crop to feed 600 people per year, 150 of these being Australian and the remaining 450 residing overseas. Clearly, this is far more than what is required for Australia's population. Despite agriculture being one of Australia's biggest industries, struggles are looming to sustainably clear and cultivate the land to meet the food requirements of an ever-growing population. As a nation, Australian farmers produce enough food to sustain 60 million people. This is far more than our nation requires, resulting in our obsession with consumerism. The disgusting reality is, Australians discard up to 20% of the food we purchase. This equates to disposing 1 out of every 5 bags of groceries we buy.
Throughout history, due to the effects of urbanisation and agricultural use, Australia has had to face the consequences of the environmental impacts. As a result, we have the worst mammal extinction rate in the world, with 29 animal species and an additional 83 species extinct in the last 400 years. In addition, the introduction of invasive species and predators has compounded these issues. Crops and weeds have outcompeted native flora and fauna for available land. This loss of biodiversity has monumental, long-lasting effects on the vitality of our vegetation and the crop yields with which farmers can realistically reach. If native vegetation is cleared and replaced with annual crops and pastures possessing shallow root systems, leakage of surface water to the groundwater system increases. The end result is the water table rising, bringing salts to the surface where they affect plant growth and water quality. The saline waters also disable the roots of the plants, leading to an increase of surface runoff and erosion rates. This prevents them from functioning and makes it increasingly difficult for our farmers and our land to keep producing crops at such a rate.
This dietary demand and over-intensification of Australia's land means we can't expect it to keep up. The UN believes that decoupling affluent and developing countries from overconsumption could be a progressive tool in lessening the pressure on the environmental ecosystem.
It's thought that if we can lessen our tendency to unnecessarily cultivate large areas of land, then we can start to decouple our farm areas from so much human interaction.
Currently in South Australia, decoupling is being used by Sundrop Farms to develop a self-sustainable system in one of Australia's most arid and urban regions. This project decouples the need for fertile land requirements and fresh water. It uses hydroponic greenhouse systems with desalinated seawater and is fully powered by solar energy. Whilst employing minimal intensive processes to the land, the system is incredibly self-reliant. With increased climate change effects, more uncertainty is being placed on yield from land. However, this is not a concern for this independent system.
Along with the decoupling of negative behaviors, improvement in whole system design is seen as an ecological and economic viable solution. Conservational farming is a whole system design approach that is already implemented in Australia. Its key principle is work with the land, to only interfere with an area of land that is absolutely necessary to cultivate. This type of sustainable practice has started a movement, created by Conservation Farming Incorporation. The organization connects growers with machinery manufacturers, input suppliers, and agribusinesses on information networks and field days. Conservation farming incorporations believe strongly that creating these links means that people in the industry work together to figure out sustainable ways of advancing the efficiency of the farming world so that our land and its systems aren't changed superfluously. One particular example of lessening the unnecessary stress put on cultivated land is crop stubble retainment. Instead of burning off the crop stubble after produce has been harvested, members of the Conservation Farming Incorporation have left the stubble behind. It has been found to retain moisture in the soil that fires would have otherwise evaporated and reduced harmful CO2 emissions. If we religiously employ these conservation principles, approximately 1.2 million tons of annual carbon production and 62 kilograms of soil carbon hectare per year, respectively, wouldn't be emitted. July 2014 saw the government repeal the incentive for carbon payment packages for the agricultural sector. Unfortunately, without these payment packages, those within the industry just don't seem to see the point of conservational farming.
So, do you think that if our population continues to grow to a further 30 to 40 million people, as predicted, we can reasonably expect to sustain our environment for the future? The Australian government argues that if we continue on this path, we shall lose our status as a premier food exporting nation, as well as the health and well-being of our population, and potentially our national security. The combination of growing societies and the government's lack of action in minimizing land system change effects has taken us to this fork in the road, and we've got to decide which road to take. One, which will take us forward to a sustainable future that enables us to maintain growth and urbanization while reducing the stress we put on our precious land. Or the other, that will see us exploit the environment and feed off its goods and services for our own economic gain. This decision is not for policymakers and politicians. We have the responsibility and obligation to choose a sustainable route for the future. So which route will you choose?